Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Moser Cie, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is to start a new series, and this series I'm calling Golden Watch Companies. These are watch companies that I think are good ones for lots of reasons for collectors to take a look at. Included in it is I wish I could say they have really low entry level, but a lot of them have, if let's say under 15,000. On the pre-owned market, you can do a lot better than that. But I just wanted to. This is not like super economical, but they're super quality, and you get a lot more for what you pay for. This is my view. Than other companies that aren't. They don't have the variety. They don't have the creativity. They simply are hacking out the same thing. Now, if you like that kind of watch, be my guest. These are not they. These are what I call my golden watch companies. And the first one I want to talk about is H. Moser et Compagnie. Uh, this goes back, I think, way back to Heinrich Moser back in 1828, I think, or sometime back then. But that's really not the Moser we have today, except insofar as there's a certain culture of quality that I think that old Heinrich insisted on, that they have been able to maintain. Uh, right here are a couple. The Moser Perpetual 1 in 2006. It won a complicated watch prize, and then this last year in 2024, the Streamliner Small Seconds won what was called the Time Only Prize. So I mean, this is the reason I mentioned GPHG wins. They've had several others, but I just wanted to point out that they. This is not just my sort of off the top of my head. These are good because I say so. They're good because they have some wonderful qualities to them. Now, sort of what happened at the beginning of this century, of the 21st century, back in 2000, sort of the beginning of the revival of a company that has more or less close to disappeared. The same thing happened with Breguet back in I think it was the 80s. The Breguet watches they just weren't what Abraham Breguet would consider the good watches, and the Chaumet brothers, and brought in all of these great people and really brought them up to date. I'm not saying that Swatch helped them, but that's another story. Okay, so let's take a look at these. The first, just a few words about from 2005 to 2012. This is when a guy named Roger Nicholas Basinger. He was Heinrich Moser's. He was a great grandson, I think, of Moser. Now he aided in the relaunch. A group of people got together and they said, "Okay, let's relaunch Moser and really bring out the best quality." And they came out with some really nice watches. Now, two of them I have. I'm wearing one of them. This is my double hairspring. They called the Henry, and the other one I have is Monard, also referred to as the uh, Endeavor Center Seconds. Okay, so these are older ones. The reason I got them, and we'll see in a second, is that between 2005 and 2012, the Moser watches they made were really excellent, and they had sort of a reputation for being excellent, but they weren't very popular. I mean, people weren't buying them. I guess this is. I know that sort of rectangular, tonneau shaped watches aren't the most popular with everybody, and certain other features about them, but they were like super quality. They were. This is white gold. The other one I have is a rose gold, And the movements, they had their own movements. This one, the movement here was fairly important. It had a double hairspring so that the springs were going this way and each one would offset the torque of the other, and so you didn't have your shaft moving all around like that. The HMC 321, this is a 7-day, really a wonderful watch. One of the things they both had is on the back they have the power reserve indicator. Okay, so there were a few of these watches, including the one the perpetual calendar that won the 2006 Grand Prix and for calendar watches. And so there were a number of really excellent watches, but like I said, they just weren't taking off. Now, the big change came in 2012. There's a company called the MELB Holdings, and they were going to buy Moser et Compagnie. Now, MELB was pretty much held, I don't know if 100%, but close enough to it, by the Malin family. And they've been in the watch business for quite a while. And when they got H. Moser et Compagnie, they also got another thing called precision engineering. They refer to it, the cool kids call it PAG. I'm not very cool, so I'll call it precision engineering. And they produced escapement components, and these included hairsprings. And Moser and Piag delivered the first Strawman hairsprings in 2007. These were important because they, later on, the Henry double hairspring was the first one they had the Strawman hairspring. And the thing about the Strawman hairspring was that it was non-magnetic and it was consistent in a lot of really good ways. Today, the H. Moser Company produces about 50,000 Strawman hairsprings. Now, they produce 3,500 watches a year. That's about that's about all they produce. They have a tagline called "Very Rare," and in many ways they are. Now, they also got another company called Houtlens. And Houtlens doesn't mean anything. It was a play on words for, I think they moved the letters around in Neuchâtel, and that was what they came up with. But what they are, they're sort of like they're just self-described as a think tank for horology. And they're characterized by handmade watches. They have a lot of innovations in displaying time, and they all look like TV sets. The old TV set. And they're tied to Piag and H. Moser watches and movements. So that's another thing they got, the MELB Holdings, when they bought the company. Now, the Malin family is very much involved. This is not one of those things where you have people who are a bunch of bean counters trying to see how much money they can make, but rather people who really want to make excellent watches. Of course, they got to stay in business, so they can't make ones that people don't like. The chairman of the board is a guy named, and I'll say this wrong because I know it's pronounced differently in French, but Georges Henri Malin. Now, he is a former CEO of Audemars Piguet. So this is a guy that's coming into this. This isn't somebody who looking to make a quick buck. His son, one of his sons, Edouard, is the CEO, and I've met and talked with him, and he's a great guy and totally dedicated to the 2H Moser Company for making quality watches. His brother, Bertrand, is the head of marketing. He handles all of that part. So that'll give you some kind of background on it. This particular hot lens there is called the HL Vagabond. It has the HLT movement. It's called the 205-1, and it's based on the H. Moser 200, which is their sort of workhorse automatic they have. Now, the okay, once they got it, so this is the starting in the changes. The one of the first ones they had that they came out with under the Malon family was the Endeavor Perpetual Calendar in Funky Blue. This came out in 2015. Now they bought it in 2012, and when I was starting to pick up their watches, I wish I'd picked up more. Back at around 2016, I think they were coming out with their new watches, and so a lot of the ones that were in stock that hadn't been sold, they were selling off pretty good prices on the secondary markets where I came along. Uh, and they ended up with two great watches, by the way. So anyway, so they came out with it. Now the perpetual calendar, remember, this was pretty much the same movement that was used in the one that won the Grand Prix back in 2006, but they starting out with a new style. They came out with something called the Swiss Alp watch in 2016. This was sort of a play on the Apple smartwatch. I don't know why they did that, but they did. And then they started coming out with these called the concept watches. One I really like is the Pioneer Center Second Citrus Green. And these are watches with no identifying marks on them. The hands that they've used on most of their watches are called, I'm going to mispronounce it, Fule or Flue. They mean leaf hands. And that's just one of the things you'll see. Now, looking at the Pioneer Center Seconds without any name or anything else, this is one of their concept watches. The one of the things they did, and I really enjoyed, there was a period there where people didn't know much about H. Moser, and so they started coming out with these incredibly fun and crazy, I guess, promotions. One was this Swiss Mad watch made of cheese. I don't know, I guess they took a watch and put some cheese around for the case. It was really funny. And another one was a Moser Nature watch, and this was the people of sustainability and everything like that. So they said this was really more sustainable. Now my favorite was what was called the Icon watch, and they took out every stereotypical feature of watches and put it together in what they call the Icon watch. It made a lot of watch companies so mad that they made them take it off the market. However, to this day, I know more people who would love to have one of those watches. They slap in a tourbillon, they put in Breguet hands, they have a Pepsi bezel, they have a crown guard, the shape, you know. And anyway, it was a fun watch, and like I said, I'd love to have one, but I think they just made that one, and to get people paying attention, well, they did. It worked. I mean, people said, "Oh boy, let's see what H. Moser is going to do." One of the more fun things they did, they had sort of this play-like number of videos, and they're still available. You got to see them if you can. It was like Edward Milan would come in, and these guys were pitching these different ad series that they had, and all of them were led to disasters. They were so funny, but the thing of it is that people, okay, now they're thinking this is something that H. Moser would do. Okay, so they're getting noticed now. Now, right now they have about 4 series. They actually have 5. One is sort of for, I'll say, sort of more like a residual series of these incredible watches that you can go see it on their site if you want. But the main ones, they have a Streamliner, which is probably, I think, one of their more iconic models. And the thing about all of theirs, I think, well, if you buy these models are real expensive and they're complicated. If you buy these, they're simple. That's not true with Moser. You can have I think the best price you can get on a brand new one is something like 12,900 or something like that, Swiss francs or dollars. I'm not sure, but I mean they're not cheap watches, but they're worth having. A couple here on the Streamline, for example, one is a minute repeater, which is very expensive. It's one of those things, contact us and we'll tell you the price, and we all know what that means. The other one is a center seconds, and I'm not sure what that price is. They have it, like I said, they have it on their site. The another series is called the Pioneer series, and I always say, oh, the Pioneer series, those are great, where you get all your great deals. Well, sort of. The Pioneer retrograde seconds. The retrograde seconds at the bottom down there are 30-second retrogrades. Is sort of cool. The thing about it, though, is that you can see there's a little double snail cam, and you can see how it works in a little window they have at the bottom down there. The mechanism was made by Agenor, and there's going to be more on that later. The Pioneer cylindrical tourbillon skeleton. This watch is I think it was a Tourbillon Award a few years ago. I'm not crazy about skeleton watches. This one I like. I just like the way they did it because you can see the movement in the way that I like to see it. By and large, I like to have the front with the time, and then looking at the back, you can see some of the movement. This next group is the Endeavor, and the Endeavor is, to me, always represented the really fancy, the sort of their top of the line. The one I have is, I call it an Endeavor, but I think it had Monard or some name that they had on sort of the ones before the Malins had it. The Endeavor, you have here you have some expensive watches and some really great watches, but they had this new set that was so funny. They have the Endeavor Tourbillon on the left there, and then they have the Endeavor Perpetual Calendar Passion Fruit, and they have another watch you get with it, and it's by Studio Underdog Passion Fruit Chronograph. The pair together is something like $60,000. But the Studio Underdog has got a Solita movement in it, and it's like probably maybe $1,500, $2,000 watch, whereas the Endeavor Perpetual Calendar is a lot more, and I'm not sure why they did that. A lot of people would say, "Boy, I really like that color, the passion fruit, but I can't afford $60,000. How about kind of get the other one by itself?" You wouldn't do that for some reason. I don't know. The other group is called the Heritage Group. There are only two watches in this. One is the Dual Time, which I really like the style a lot, and the other one is the Center Second. Okay, now one of the things that happened in 2023, just a couple of years ago, H. Moser, parent company, MELB, bought or acquired a minority stake in Agenor SA. Now, the reason that this is important is this. Not too long ago, Rolex announced that they announced they were buying Carl Bucher, and then they announced that they are dropping the watch line. However, they're keeping all of the retail outlets for it. So their partnership was based, I think, primarily on owning a lot of these outlets that Bucher owned. The difference here, H. Moser bought Top Movement Making Company. One day I went over the awards that had Agenor movements in it, and it had almost more awards were in watches by their movements than anyone else. I mean, they're really good. One of the most interesting new movements that they have is called the Agengraph. This was something that Jean-Marc Wiederreck who was the founder of Agenor and also with the first winner of the GPHG Watchmaker of the Year. That was back in 2007. And so here he's got this fabulous movement that just is really revolutionary as far as chronographs are concerned. And this arrangement gave Moser more access to that. Other companies like Singer and Fabergé also use that movement. Anybody else who, I guess, who if they have enough resources, you can get it with. But this is the team, though, that sort of got together not to market theirs, but rather to improve and strengthen the horology. You know, another company that did that really is Chanel. They bought into F.P. Journe and they bought into Romain Gauthier. And so those were very much for high quality horology. And so Moser did it with Agenor, which is, you know, can't beat that for watchmaking, movement making. Okay, now the final thing I want to talk about is what I call gold mining. Finding really super good bargains on H. Moser's isn't impossible. I mean, if you're looking for it, if you keep your eyes open, it's the only way to really find your great deals. You're minding your own business one day and you see something and say, holy smoke, that's an X or Y. And it's a great deal. Here are three. Two of them I found on Chrono 24. One was an Endeavor Small Seconds, 8,189. Now this watch, it's hand wound, and this is from sort of the first wave of revival. This is from the guys back between about 2005 and 2012. And so they're not part of the main one, but some of their movements still are. This one I found was 8189 on Chrono 24. And again, these, as far as I'm concerned, everything is negotiable, and you'd be foolish not to. Another one was a Pioneer Center Seconds. Now, this is a steel watch, but a much newer one in cosmic green. And this one was 9150. Finally, another one I found, this one on eBay, was a Pioneer Blue Fumet, 7750. One of the things I think that I like about H. Moser is that the treatment of the dials, they really have a lot of innovation in that, but they also, and I think this is equally important, they have this incredible innovation in the movements. They're working with Agenor. They have the horsepower to working together that they can do that. Anyway, two questions for you. One, what do you think of this whole idea of golden watch companies? And what do you think of Moser, too? If you have them, I'd like to hear your opinion of it. And if you're thinking about it, I'd like to also hear your opinion about this from what we talked about today. Anyways, opportunity to subscribe if you like. And till next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Cie, the art and science of watch collection. Take care.